Good afternoon, good morning. Welcome to today's webinar, or this afternoon's webinar, which is all about some batch tips. So that will be dividing up Capture One into the import process, some editing or selecting rating tips, a tiny bit of editing, but not too much, just more of in the process of a copy paste. And then depending on the time, we can have a look at a few other bits, but that will probably take us up nicely to the top of the hour. Before we get to that, if you're on YouTube or Facebook, welcome. Feel free to put any questions or comments in the chat. I'll be able to pick those up and see them in front of me. Equally, if you're in the webinar room, excuse me, if you want to ask questions, just use the Q&A tab. That just keeps it separate from the chat, but please do chat amongst yourselves there as well. But that just helps us to identify the questions, not just the fun chats that you guys are having amongst yourselves. And I say we, as I've also got Diego helping me out in the webinar room and across social media, and also Yulia as well. So you might see answers from other people other than myself. So let us get started. So the first thing we're going to do to help improve our speed and efficiency is regarding import. So we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to import from a out of focus memory card in a minute, as you can see there. But before we get to do that, we're going to prepare a couple of things which you can use going forward in the future to help speed up your import process as well, all being with the goal of efficiency. So in the import process, two additional things we're going to do is add some metadata. So we need to make a template. And we're also going to do some various different naming things as well. And then this is a single setup process. So moving forward, then you'll be able to just use the same tactics. So it might seem a bit laborious on the first time we set up, but it's going to be nice and quick. So first of all, we need to set up some metadata. So let's just go to an empty photo for a second. And obviously for your library, you're not probably going to have a bunch of different metadata templates. You're just going to have one. So again, this is a single setup and forget about it. Now the photos I'm going to import on my out of focus memory card. These are from a good friend and colleague, Robin. So we're going to make a metadata template for Robin because we're going to import his photos. So I'm going to pop his name in there, create his job. He is a photographer, of course. I've used those terms before, so they're coming up just as an autofill. We're not going to give Robin's address away, so we're just going to call it 345 Any Street, and whoops. Any street. City-wise, it's going to be Metropolis, if you like that idea. And obviously we can go on, and Robin's in the UK. Now, you could fill out, obviously make a much more extensive list with your name, website, copyright information, all that kind of stuff. But the idea being then this is something we standardize and we just import all our photos as we bring them in. All right, so that was the first thing I want to do, but we need to save that. So let's save our template. So we're going to save in the metadata tool our user preset. And we just want metadata like so. Now we could just turn on and off what we need. I don't want the rating and color tag because if I use this at a later date, I don't want it to overwrite my rating and color tag. So we could just tick the things that are useful for us, but I'll just leave everything else and say save, and we're going to call that Robin metadata like so. And we're going to say save. So now we've got that metadata term which we can use in our import process and moving forward as well. Second thing that I want to do is also when we make an import, I want to put them straight into a collection as well. Now a collection is, a folder. In the virtual sense, it is something as simple as an album or a project or a group and so on. So what I want to do is just drop them straight into a collection into this project here. So I'm going to right click and say new inside, and let's make a new album. And again, we're going to call that Robin Cena as well, like so. Now a quick tip here, select collection after creation. Why do I want to do that? Because when I import, I want it to go straight into this collection so we can get to work straight away. And let's say, okay. So we've set up our metadata template and we've now got our collection set, which we are going to import our photos into as well. So let's get our memory card, plug this in. So it's going to go into my card reader just in front of me, and that will pop up open and we can see the contents. Now I am going to delete the stuff I did this morning so we don't spoil the surprise because there's also a webinar in the morning as well, but this stuff I should have wiped out before we started. But there we go, we're starting from our blank template. So before we import, what if we don't want to import everything? So there might be a few dud exposures off the card, something out of focus, repetitive shots that we don't want, and so on. When you first open up the import dialog, everything will be marked for importing by default. So if I just hide me for a second, so you see down here in the bottom right hand corner it says import all, and you can see every photo has that checkbox next to its file name, so you can see one here. So if I was to go ahead and import now, it would grab everything off that card. But let's say we don't want to have every single photo. What's a simple way to do that? Now, since the dawn of Capture One 21, let's just pop the overhead camera on a second. Very simple thing to do. First of all, we can say down here, we've got pick all. We can uncheck that. So now nothing is going to be imported. And the fastest way to go through and make your selects is to simply use the spacebar. So if I tap the spacebar, it's going to toggle that picture on. So as we go through and just select a couple of pictures for import and then tap the spacebar, now they are going to be part of that import collection. If you prefer, you can use the shortcuts X, which will unpick, or P, which will pick like so. But personally, I find the spacebar just the easiest way to toggle a choice on and off. Now, as we want to import a few pictures, let's just say pick all for this exercise, but don't forget you can do that. And don't forget, if you want to see them bigger, you can expand them out here. So you've got an easier chance of looking at them a bit closer as well. Okay, so you've decided on the ones we want to import. We're coming from import from, which is our memory card. Once we've done this, I'm going to show you a very quick tip if we're importing from an existing location. So we're going to come back to that section. But now I want to decide what we're going to do with these photos. So if I had add to the catalog, that simply means they're going to stay on the memory card and Capture One will know how to find them. Not a good idea to leave them on the memory card. So let's copy them to a particular folder. So as soon as I choose copy to folder, Capture One is going to give me a choice. So let's put them on my external hard drive and we're going to make a new folder called Robin Cena, like so, and say create. So this is my import folder. This is the primary destination or the top level folder that my imports are going to go. Now, the interesting thing is underneath, we have the ability to add a subfolder. Now, I can type in what I want here, like so, or I can use something called a token in Capture One, which is a very powerful function, which takes some aspect or information of the photo and uses that to create a folder. So let's go ahead and click this button here, which will show me a very large list of tokens. Now, it's highly unlikely that you will find a use for every single one of these tokens. You will probably find 3 or 4, which might be interesting for you guys. I'll give you a couple of examples in a second. You'll find under the all term here that it will just show you a mega list of all the potential tokens that there is. If you want to distill them down into something that's a bit simpler, then they are in various different categories. So if we just take like camera specific data, we've got make, model and owner. So if I was to simply drag model up here, like so, then Capture One gives me a sample of what it is. So whatever photo I had selected here, it's going to show me, okay, this is from a Leica M as an example. If we switch to a different category, let's go for vendor specific camera serial number. Let's say you had a bunch of cameras with different serial numbers, then this would be a way for Capture One to read those serial numbers and split the cameras up or the photos up into different folders based on the camera serial number. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to mix handwritten text in with some tokens. So I'm going to put Leica and I'm going to pop in a /, which means make me another folder, or go down one step on the folder tree. Once we've done the import, it will become super clear and you know what's going on. And then we're going to go to date and time and we're going to grab image date. So this was the date that the photograph was captured at. And again, you can see a sample of how it's going to look. Now, if you don't like that date format, it's easy to choose. We can just click on the little downward arrow here and pick one of the others. So I'm going to go for year, month, day, like so. So that's year, month, day, as you can see on the sample. If you want to use something completely different or completely built on your own, then you've also got the days, date, month, time down to seconds also available here in those tokens as well. So you can be very specific. So they're going to pop into a folder and then also a further folder based on the date that they were captured. If this is something you're going to do frequently, don't forget to save it as a preset, but it will also be sticky the next time you come into the import window. But do save a setup, and then you can see some built-in presets down here so that you can always recall these tokens very quickly. So let's say okay, and now the collection selected album. So by default it says recent imports only, which just shows us the first 10 imports that have been made into our catalog. Now I've already created this folder and selected it, and I want the photos to go straight in there, so I'm going to say selected album, like so. Now we want to name our photos. Now by default the token in use is called image name, so that just uses the exact same name that's under the photo. Now there's nothing wrong with that, but I've also run into an issue myself where the counter actually went all the way around on the camera, or I think it was actually I had two Sony cameras, this one that I'm looking at now, and also a larger camera, an A7, and they actually ended up having a collision of file names. So I had duplicate file names in my library and I got in a right mess. And I was overwriting files which I was uploading to the cloud and everything. So a good lesson there was to always try and come up with unique file names. So even if the image name is exactly the same, then you've still got some unique identifier in it as well. So if you want to keep the original name in there, you can if you wish. I don't know if it's super relevant, but let's build a naming convention as well. So I'm going to get rid of that. I think what is nice is to have your name in the file as well. Considering that we work with quite a lot of photographers at Capture One with collaborations and sharing stories and all these kinds of things, it's so nice when we get photos in from photographers that they have their name in the file convention. I can't tell you how refreshing that is, rather than some randomly generated Canon number. If it's got their name in the file name, it's just so much better because it's easier to locate outside of any asset management system. Just so many advantages. So it's a good habit to get into. I'm going to put a dash in between, and then we're also going to use the image date again. Why not? Because that's a unique identifier to some extent. Image date, so we can just drop that in. I'll go for year, month, day again. And right now this wouldn't be unique because it would name everything Robin and then today's date. So if they're all shot on today's date, we'd end up with a load of identical file names. Not good. So let's plop in a counter as well. And by default it's 1 digit, which isn't great because that will only get up to 10 shots or 9 shots. So I'm going to change this to 4 digits. So we're going to have name, and then we're going to have the date, and then a counter as well, like so. So good to keep that nice and unique. Now you could expand this further, you could put a location in there or a project or whatever, but just think about what makes sense to you, the kind of work you do, or if you're a hobbyist, how to make these names actually relevant as well. Because let's say an enormous fireball dropped on Capture One tomorrow, hope it doesn't, then if you need to use a different system for managing your photos, it's kind of helpful to have relevant file names as well. So if this was a trip to Bangladesh or whatever, I might be tempted to put that in there, but we're going to put Robin's name in there for today. Again, you could save yourself a preset if you wanted to. So let's say, okay. So now if I click through these different photos, you see how it's changing. Now I want to make sure the counter is on 0. So I'm just going to reset my import counter. So that means the very first shot is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. All right, metadata, that was important. Not this one, sorry. We can put some basic metadata in there, but we were clever and we set up a metadata template. So under adjustments, we're going to look for our user presets and grab Robin's metadata like so. So now that's going to apply it on import. If you want to, you can auto adjust as well. Capture One does a pretty good job of auto adjusting. I won't do it today. There's just a tiny time penalty and we want to import as fast as possible. So to recap, we are importing to the primary folder Robin on my external hard drive. If you want to see where that is, you can click the arrow and that will just open up Finder, just so I know, okay, yep, that's in the right place. It's going to make a subfolder called Leica and then drop further subfolders in based on the date the photo was taken. It's going to place them in our selected album and it's going to rename them all at the same time and add some metadata too. So that's a lot of different operations going on at the same time with the goal to be more efficient. So let's say import all, like so. So away we go, they start coming straight into this collection. Nice and easy. While that's importing, let's just check the question. Alan says, will Capture One recognize metadata from Photo Mechanic? Great question. Yes, it will. If you go back through the live broadcast playlists on YouTube, I did a half-hour broadcast on working with Photo Mechanic and Capture One. So yes, it indeed does. Photo Mechanic also has a preset in the preferences to set it up in the best way to work with Capture One. Is it possible to keep the original name in the EXIF when changing the names? Charles was asking. That's a good question. I'm not sure if in the EXIF data, if you dig super deep in the EXIF data, it might keep it. I'm not sure, but it's not something you can look at in Capture One as an example. Will a use of the style on import work together with include existing adjustments? Yes, it does. Sorry, will the use of a style and import work together with include? Oh no, one will overwrite the other for sure, I think. I'm not actually sure which one takes precedence, so I'd actually just try that, Jürgen. Does the metadata you create in Capture One erase the metadata in camera? I've set up copyright information in each camera. It would, Derek, but what you could do is that as long as on the metadata template, and it's using the same standard, so it's further down copyright notice, just make sure that's blank. And then when you save your user preset, just make sure you don't have that copyright box checked and then it won't overwrite it. Because if it's ticked and the field is blank, then it's gonna overwrite it. All right, Jerome says, for the people who don't use collections, is there any way to default to the last folder used? Well, everything in the import window is sticky. So if I said import again, it's going to Robin, like so. So if that folder is my photo collection, and then the subfolder is image date, then you can forget about ever changing this in the future because it will all just flow into that folder. So everything here is sticky, meaning the next time you go in, it's going to look exactly the same. All right, I think that's good for questions currently, or at least the bulk of it. So what happened on our import. So straight away you can see we've got our Robin's name and his fictional address at the top, present in all those metadata entries like so. They've been placed into our collection immediately, so that's all 27 pictures available in that collection. If we look at the folders tool, if you remember, they were going into our folder called Robin, subfolder Leica, and now they've been divided up into folders based on the date that they were captured. So that's a lot of things we did in one action. And as I said at the start, yes, that might have seemed quite a lot to set up, but remember, once you've set it up, that's it. So your preset for metadata is going to stay the same. Jerome, your master folder where you import to, there's no necessary reason for that to change. So the only thing you have to be aware of if you are going to a collection is to select one before you import. If you have selected albums selected and you haven't actually picked an album, you'll see a warning triangle next to it and you won't be able to import. All right, so now we've got some photos in Capture One. We need to think about perhaps picking, choosing some, and so on. So there's quite a few things going on in this select menu up the top here, which can aid you in a whole bunch of different ways in selecting, choosing photos. The first thing that we're going to look at is select next when. So that's a really handy functionality that ties to star ratings and color tags. Dehydrated today. So I've got color tag checked on, and what that simply means is that when I apply a color tag to a photo, it will select the next one for me. So that saves you a key press or a mouse click from going to the next photo. Now that might not sound much, but if you've got 1,000 pictures to look through, that's minus 1,000 key presses. Now before we get to that, you can also think about keyboard shortcuts. What shortcuts do I want to use for adding star ratings and color tags? Now by default, if we just look at this view for a second, sorry it's a bit shiny, it's very hard to light this keyboard. So by default, red, yellow, green, I think on the default shortcut set is you've got plus for green, minus for red, star for yellow, I believe the default is, but I've switched those around a bit just to use the whole number grid, which I find a bit more intuitive. So if I type in green as an example, you can see my color tag for green is 7. So that's here. And then I won't click through all of them, but basically 7 is green, 8 is yellow, 9 is red, and 6 is clear color tag, which is also a very useful one to have. And then of course 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the color, is the star rating. So then everything sits on that keypad quite nicely. So let's clear that. So with that in mind, seeing as I'm covering up that side of the photo, let's just move overhead camera over here. Sorry, should have done that earlier, and move me across as well. And then have a look at what select next when does, which I think you probably would have figured out by now. So just with a hand on the keyboard, then if I hit 7 for green, then we're straight away on the next shot. So if I think, okay, that's a great shot, gonna mark that, love that one, love that one. I'd like this shot as well, but if it was one we wanted to reject, then I could press 9 on the keyboard. That would mark it red, and we move on to the next photo and so on. So now you can go through this process of tagging, rating images super quickly without having to do anything but just use the 3 numbers. Same goes for the star ratings. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if we look at this shot as an example, if I was to give that a rating of 5, then it's not advancing to the next one because I haven't set that up in select next when. So it's nice you can separate between color tags and star rating. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, another thing when it comes to selecting, rating, and so on, is after that process, you might like to filter down to the actual final selections. So over here on the left hand side hang on, let's just hide that. Over here on the left hand side, we've got our filters tool, and you can see the various numbers here for all the photos, or sorry, the current collection. So in this collection, I know we have 11 shots that are green. So if I tag this, then it's going to filter to the 11 green tag shots. Now again, if you want to simplify that with a shortcut, if we go back into our edit keyboard shortcuts and I type in green once again, what I do is I set up the toggle to the same number as the color, but just add shift. So if I unfilter that for a second and I hold shift down on my keyboard and tap 7, then you see it turns my green filter on like so. And if I do shift 7 again, then it turns my green filter on and off, and you can just see the display. Let's scroll down to some different ones. So you can see shifting now like so as we toggle on and off between the green filters. So that's also a tip, because it saves you having to remember, okay, I know 7 is green. Very easy to remember, shift 7 as the one filtering. Michael says, how can I skip photos? So you can very easily just use your cursor keys or command cursor. Whoops, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong application. Hang on, in Capture One, I've flipped it. So command cursor keys like so, or if you're on a PC, that would be the Alt key. So that just moves through the different shots like so. So if you are using the select next when and you think, I want to skip that, you can just do a quick command like so. All right. Next, let's just check my notes. So that's looking at individual photos. What about looking at more than one photo at the same time? And this leads us into the rabbit hole of the Edit Selects button at the top here. So there's this great feature in Capture One. I'm just going to select all of these and just clear them so we can start afresh. So that was 6 on my keyboard. So don't forget, I've got 6 set up to clear all my color tags. So there's a very useful feature in Capture One called sets. And a set is basically more than one photo selected. So if I was to shift select these 4 pictures, Capture One now sees these 4 photos as one set. Okay, so what's the point of having a set? Well, sometimes if you've shot a collection of photos which have a lot of similar ones in, let's say you've got a brand new Sony A1 and you're shooting at 30 frames a second, then it's likely that a lot of the frames are going to be very similar. So using sets means you can gather together a lot of similar photos and just target the good one. So let's say you did a burst of shots, bride kissing the groom, player catching a ball, player throwing a ball, or something like that, and you want to pick out the best frame. Sometimes it's easier to see those as a set as opposed to an individual picture just on Capture One's viewer. So I've selected these 4 photos. So now using just my cursor keys, I can whiz through those different shots like so. Now, out of these 4 shots, let's imagine it's 4 very similar photos. I think, okay, out of these 4 shots, I think this one is the best one. So I want to tag that green. I'm just going to turn off select next when, so we can stay on this view. I want to tag that green. So I'm going to hit number 7 on my keyboard. Oh dear, now it's tagged all of them green. That's rather frustrating. So let's clear them. What happens if I turn this off? Edit selected. And this is really a simple toggle. You can even see the help bubble that pops off. Do the action to all the photos in my selection or just the primary. And the primary in Capture One speak is the one with the thick white border. So let's disable this. Now if I hit 7 on my keyboard for green, we're going to cover it up. Nope. So now if I hit 7 on my keyboard, it just targets that photo. So if I wanted to pick out these 2, I could tap 7 again, and now it's target that one. Now, as I said, Capture One regards this as a set. So now I want to move on to the next set. Okay. So if we look in our super helpful select menu again, you'll find the option next set, which is Alt right arrow. So I selected 4 pictures, so Capture One knows this. It's now going to pick up the next 4 pictures. As soon as I do my Option right key, like so, now Capture One picks up those next 4 pictures. So I can do the same thing again. I can say, well, out of these, I quite favor this one and this one. Now I can go to my next set and so on, and carry on doing the same exercise. You can also turn on select next when as well. So if you want to do hands-free off the keyboard, so now if I press green, it will go to this one. If I just press 6, if I don't want to tag it, it will move to the next one, 7. Now, as soon as I press 7 now to mark this one green, it's going to pick up the next 4 pictures as well. So select next when also works really nicely in a set too. All right. Okay, so let's just go quickly through. I'm going to mark a couple of those green. Let's go to my next set using the shortcut. Go to the next set. Let's have this one and this one. And now that we've got to the end, we've got 27 photos. That doesn't divide by 4, basic maths. So it's Capture One is just showing us, okay, you've got 3 photos left on this set. If I go back to the previous set, which is, you've guessed it, Alt left arrow, then it will remember that the initial set was 4 and just start picking those up again. Now you can have a lot more in the set if you want, or you could just have 2 photos in a set. So Capture One would just always remember exactly. I think the limit is probably 16, but there we go. There's a whole bunch. If I do Option right arrow, then it picks up the same volume of pictures on the next one. So just remember that all important edit all selected toggle. That also affects applying a style. So if this is turned on, so if we have a selection of these 3 shots and I apply a style, then it will happen to everything like so. If it was off, then it only happens to the primary. Same goes for presets, star ratings, color tags, exporting using a process recipe, make sure that's switched on. So if you're ever doing something and it only happens to that one primary selection, you've probably inadvertently turned off edit all selected. That's why. Okay, what else exciting things have we got in the select menu? So if you want to, let's stick with the primary again. So let's say you're looking at 4 shots like this, shift select 4 photos, and we're looking at these 4 and we think, actually, which one would I like to edit first? So let's say I want to edit this one first. So how do I just deselect the others? So again, if we look in our select menu, you can say select primary only. And I just changed the shortcut in the editor to Command P. So now if I hit Command P on my keyboard, Command P, then it just selects that. Equally, you've got the opposite. So if we grab that, and then we've also got deselect primary. So if we're looking at a selection, I've got Shift Command P, as you can see. Out of these 4, what do I want to get rid of? Actually, I don't want to do this one right now, Shift Command P. Okay, that one I don't want to do, Shift Command P. I'm going to edit these 2 alongside each other as an example, or I can now deselect that one. So handy little speedy things there as well. Underneath at the bottom, this is for moving through collections. So let's just find a different collection with a bit more sub collections in it. Okay, so if we go to this, get the most out of layers and a few others. Now, as you can see, if I wanted to, let's say you wanted to go through a whole rating process, color tag, star rating or whatever, and you want to be completely hands off your mouse, then you can do that. So right now I've come to this collection and I'm not on the first photo, I'm on the last one. So again, if we look at select, we can go to the first photo. So that's Command up arrow thing. And the up arrow thing is this, which is why it helps having a full-size keyboard, because you have access to a few extra buttons. So if I do Command up arrow thing, That takes me to the first collection. Then I can go through and do all my color tagging, whatever I want to do, you know, as I see fit. And if I want to move through to my next collection, so this one over here, this is what these are for. So that would be Control Shift S. You can of course make an easier shortcut if you want, but Control Shift S, that will go through to my next collection. Let's just mark that green. Let's go to the next collection. Let's just move through to one. Now this one, of course, doesn't have anything selected. So you're going to say, aha, you now need to go and pick up your mouse and then choose this photo. Not so. If you just use the Command up arrow thing button again, then that will pick up the first photo. So you can do a whole culling and rating session completely hands-off if you wish. Okay, to finish up on select stuff, there's also a couple of interesting things in here. So we've got select by, let's just pick this one up. So select by same, that will show you the settings or parameters for this particular photo. So it has no ratings, it has a green color tag, it has a sequence ID, which is for phase 1 cameras only, for focus stacks and a few other sequences, and it's variant 1. We're going to come back to that. So if I wanted to pick up or select all the other green photos, I could click this, and then Capture One has now selected just the greens only. So if I wanted to export the greens, move them to a different location and so on. Oh, let's just hide that for now. Let's go back in this one and say, if I did select by rating, that would just pick up all the unrated ones and so on. If we put 1 star on this guy and did a right click and said select all the 1 stars, that's my only 1 star. Helps if you have more than one. So if I did select by 1 star, then it would pick up those two. So a couple of handy little shortcuts there. Now the select by variant position, this can be really handy. So let's say on our 24 shots, 27, we want a color and a black and white. So I'm going to select all, Command A, very useful. And I'm going to say make a new variant. So that will make a brand new virtual copy of each photo and actually select it automatically. But let's say you've lost your selection or whatever and you want to select all the number 2s. So again, I can right click and say select by the same variant position. So pick up all the number 2s. So now I've got all my second variants. Make sure edit all selected is turned on. And now I can easily make those a black and white with my preset. So now I've got a color and a black and white of each one, all nicely done. Like so. And at any point, if I just wanted to pick up all the black and whites, right click, select by same variant, and away we go, like so. So that's a super handy feature. Last select by same thing that we can show you is select by file name list, which is super handy. So let's say you've got a bunch of pictures, you've sent them away to your client, friend or whatever, and said please pick out the 10 best ones and I'll sort them out for you. So you're now staring at this list and thinking, okay, I need to go through, what if this is 1,000 pictures, and then find the 10 selects that you've done. That's pretty frustrating. So if we do select by file name list, and let's just punch in a couple of numbers. So I'm going to grab number 18. What do we got down here? Let's find number 21. Well, we know what they are. Let's do 0021 and let's do 0024 as well, like so. So all we've done is put in the numbers at the end. It doesn't have to be the complete file name of the shot, but that's unique in that shot. Delimiter means how are we delimiting the new file name? I'm putting them on a new line. And I'm ignoring the file extension because this is very handy. If I've sent JPEGs to my client, then they might send me the whole file name back with .jpeg. If I just copy paste this from a sheet into this dialog, I want to ignore the file extension too. So now if I say OK, Capture One just has selected those shots. See, nothing else is selected. So now I could move those to a different collection, hit them with a color tag. You know, if I've got a shortcut for purple, I could hit them with that, move it to a collection, or they go to a smart collection automatically. The sky is the limit. So lots of different things that we can do. Oh, my notepad is stuck for selecting. All right, what about some editing things? Quick drink. Check some questions. Okay, will Capture One recognize color tags and ratings from Photo Mechanic? It will definitely recognize ratings. Color tags, I'm not sure. I have a feeling Photo Mechanic uses different colors, but I think you can also change the preference in Photo Mechanic to have different colors, but don't take my word for that. Let's see. That's correct, Mike. So with edit all selected enabled, keyboard settings will change all selected, mouse clicks will not. Yeah, exactly. So if I went here and put 3 on this one, it won't affect the others. So it's if you're using the keyboard shortcut correct. So that's also if you want to do a quick, you know, color tag without affecting anything else. Whoops, just ruined my selection. So let's select those. Try again, David. And I just pick the color tag here, then you see it only does it on the one. If I was to use the shortcut, it would do it on all. So that's a good one to remember as well. John, what is the up arrow thing? Don't know what the technical term it is. I think it's page up, because it's not on this keyboard, it's not named, but I'm pretty sure it's the, no, because that's page up. So on this keyboard, this Logitech, it's not actually listed. If I grab a different keyboard, no, it's the same on an Apple keyboard as well. So sorry, I know the lighting's not perfect. So you can see it just there, that one there, up with the stop. So I think officially it's called top or something like that. Can't remember. Leon says, will select by file name list also select an image if the characters are in the middle of that file name? It will. So either copy paste the entire file name or just make sure if it's a number sequence that it's unique as well. Okay. All right. Just checking on YouTube and Facebook. Oh, here we go. Tip from Dave. Thanks, Dave. It will, sorry, Dave, I hid you. It will recognize the Photo Mechanic color tag, but you need to change to the Capture One set. Thanks, Dave. Glad you know what you're talking about. I thought there was a way to do it. I know the default set is slightly different to Capture One. All right, how are we doing for time? 15 minutes, great. So for editing, a couple of things I just want to cover in copy and apply. So let's just choose a different set of photos as if by magic. Camilla appears. Okay, so let's pick 4 Camillas and then think about how we want to copy and paste some photos across. And for this, it's important to understand how the adjustments clipboard works. Just going to quickly change something. That's spoiler alert, which comes later. So we've got these 4 shots and we're going to do some quick basic edits. So let's grab our white balance picker and click there. Let's add a bit of contrast, boost the exposure. Let's pull the highlights down and we'll add a teeny bit of clarity. And finally, we will add in a crop. Now, if you think it's a bit crazy to edit in such a small window, that's true, but it's also useful to know what this does. So I've got 4 selected, so 4 photos selected just above me, as you can see. If I turn this toggle off, then it's only going to show me the primary. So it's the one with the thick white border. So even if I use a cursor key, I can move through my selection like so. It will actually, at the bottom, if I press right cursor key once more, it'll go back to the top because I'm still actually working in this set. But I can say just show me the primary or show me the entire set like so. So if you want to keep a selection but work off excuse me, the primary, then this toggle is really handy for that. Okay, so we've done a bunch of adjustments to this one. How do we get those across? Fairly simple operation in Capture One, but it's good to understand what's happening in the adjustments clipboard. So if I say copy up here in the top right, straight away everything is loaded in the adjustments clipboard of those adjustments that I made. As soon as I say apply, it gets copied across to any other picture. Excuse me. Now the keen-eyed amongst you, or those that are still awake, will notice that the crop hasn't been copied across, which is the default behavior. That was the sneaky change I made, but that is the default behavior in Capture One. It will copy everything except for composition. So the crop, rotation, keystone adjustments, and so on. That's generally the better workflow, because in a situation where you're doing lots of unique edits, you don't necessarily want to have the crop the same as well. But if you did, you can just change this to adjusted. And now when I say copy and apply, then it gives me the crop across. And I can actually work pretty quickly by moving the crop in the right spot. I can use next set. I can hit apply. And now I can move the crop like so, next set, and so on. So we could use set in that respect too, like so. Now, obviously those shots, it doesn't make sense for that application, but you get the idea. Now, if you wanted to just send a crop, let's just pick up these shots again. Let's just take, sorry, that was a right click. Let's just grab these 4 shots. I'm going to go to my crop tool and let's reset the crop. Do you want to reset adjustments on all 4 variants? Yes, I do. So that's just going to reset the crop. For copy and apply, if you didn't know this, and this seems to be a function which is not known in Capture One a great deal. So let's throw a crop here, and I'll do a relatively dramatic one. Let's say we want to get this crop onto all the other shots, but we don't want to affect anything else. I don't want to use copy and apply, because what if they're different adjustments for each one? But the crop is the desired crop for every single photo. In the crop tool itself, there's a little up down arrow. So if I hold down my shift key, simply shift, like so, and then click on the up down arrow, then straight away it sends that crop. So again, shift click, boom, like so. Same goes for any other adjustment. So if I just tweak the exposure and shift click, then it copies that across to everything else. So shift click just suppresses that dialog. You can press up, down, choose what you want to have, and then say apply, but generally it's just faster to do a quick shift click like so. Okay, we've done that. So another thing, let's go back to Robin's collection for a second. Let's go back to Robin's collection. Another item or another function where you want to be aware what edit all selected does and how you can use it to your advantage is in combination with speed edit. So let's just select all. Let's select all. Another handy tip, if we go to image collapse, so that's just going to show me the single variants at the top. So that's hidden all the variant 2s. So if you only want to work off the single variants, that's it. Oh, it helps if you select everything, David. Select all. I thought I did. Image collapse, expand selected, image collapse selected. Oh, I've got a, do I have a filter on? No, I'm just losing the plot today. 1 of 53, 1, 2. Oh, that's because there's more than one shot there. Anyway, I'm just losing my mind, obviously. So what was I doing? Speed edit, that's right. So we're gonna select, let's just select a few more shots like so, and we want to do a quick speed edit. So speed edit is a new function in Capture One 21, which works great for speed edit. So let's just hide the tools because we don't need them with speed edit. Remind ourselves what the speed edit shortcuts are. So if we go to speed edit keys, we can see pretty much follows the left-hand side of the keyboard. Let's just move this dialog over. So QWER, then we've got ASDF, and then Z down at the bottom, and a few blanks if you want to fill those in, and 1 and 2 up the top for Kelvin adjustments. And the whole premise of speed edit is, obviously you can change these, is that when I hold down one of those speed edit keys, so let's do the first one. So I'm holding down Q on my keyboard. So long press on Q, like so. Right now, the photo has become a giant slider. So I can either just drag with my cursor, left and right, or if I'm using a mouse, we could simply scroll with the mouse and that would do the same thing. Or if we're using our trackpad, which you can't see, it's just out of camera. If I scroll up and down, just to my left, then you can see those sliders changing as well. Now, logically, that's happening. Wrong camera, David. Logically, that's happening on all those photos. So if I wanted to, let's say, warm everything up, that would be press and hold 1, and then I would just give everything a little boost like so. Now, looking at these photos, if we wanted to do some individual adjustments, this is where I would turn edit all selected off. But it's nice to keep all the photos up, especially if you're trying to balance them out in terms of exposure and color and so on. So now I can go through and think, actually, this one, I'm just going to tone the exposure down a bit. This one's a bit dark, so I'm going to lift that up. This one, the highlights are a bit on the bright side, so I'm going to pull those down, and so on. So don't forget, this function is equally important when we're using speed edit as well, especially if you want to balance up a different, a few different shots. So if we just pull in our black and whites, he's a little bit on the bright side, so I'm going to bring the exposure down and so on. What I learned with speed edit sort of accidentally is that if I bring up the overhead camera, there's a slight delay. If I just tap, can you see the cursor tool? Just about. So it's just above, you can see it there. If I tap Q, then that's going to convert it to my healing brush. Let's just put it back to the pan tool with H. If I press and hold, that's going to activate speed edit. Now you'll notice when I press and hold, there's a slight delay to the exposure bar popping up. You do not have to wait for that exposure bar. So if you grab your pointing device of choice, if I hit Q and drag at the same time, then you'll see if I select this one, I don't have to wait until it comes up. Capture One will detect that button is held down, and then it will start using speed edit immediately. So then it's, super speed edit. So don't wait for the bar to come up. You'll intuitively know, okay, I know W is contrast, so if I press and drag exactly at the same time, then we're adjusting that speed edit tool straight away. So really useful to know. It just accelerates the whole process a lot faster. All right, how are we doing for time? Pretty much almost at the end. Let's just check questions. Dick says, could you use the spot dust tool like you did with the crop? You can use it with any tool. So if you find that little up down arrow, oops, get in there, Capture One. If you see that little up down arrow anywhere, then yes, you can do it. So you're talking about the spot removal tool, has exactly the same one there. So if you've got the same spots, sorry, let's hide that. You've got the same spots on one photo to a next. So yes, if you just wanted to copy spots across, you can do so. You can do it with layers as well. So you've got copy and apply for layers too. So absolutely, no problem at all. Is it possible to batch add a mask to multiple images? For example, a 20 pixel border around multiple images of different sizes? No, you can't do frames in Capture One. I know someone's written a couple of Apple scripts to do it, but just on the Mac platform. So if you're on Mac, have a little hunt for Apple scripts for borders in Capture One, and it is actually possible. Let's see. Lost a few chats. Adam says, anyone know where to search for the file numbers to select them? I missed that part. Well, if you've been given, let's just go back and say show in Finder. let's say you've been returned a list of file names. I mean, that could just be a Word document, a text edit document. Let's just try and find an actual list of shots. So if you use text editor on the Mac, so if I do copy on these and we open up text edit as an example, if I were to say paste now, it will start trying to paste the actual shots. But if we turn this to plain text, format plain text, and I say paste, then I just get the file numbers. And then you can just copy and paste that into edit, select by, file name list, paste, like so. So if someone's just given you a list, well, they've done the job for you. But if they've sent you back actual JPEGs, then you can just use something like a text editor, grab that as well. Just checking your questions here. June said, how did I initially select the set of 4? Good question, and it's one of those things which is kind of consistent across all applications really. Shift, so for your start and end point, if we shift click, that will select everything in between. So I'm just holding down shift. If you use command or alt on the PC, then it's single selects like so. So if I go through and just click on random pictures holding down command, then it's our single select. Don't forget shift command A, select nothing, weird up arrow thing, first shot, and all that kind of stuff. So right, other questions? I think that's good. Sergey says, how, that's a good question, can we solve that? How can I, sorry Sergey, I heard you. How can I see images selected by file name list alongside not selected? I would, well, what I would do is once you've done your select by file name list, let's actually go to Paul's collection, because then we can actually use that. So let's see if this is going to work. Paul Reifer. So edit, select by file name list. Let's copy those in and say OK. So that's Capture One has selected those. So we've got 6 selections. So what I would do then is tag them somehow. I would probably color tag them or star rate them or whatever. And then within this collection, so if we did, what have we got? Let's do a shortcut for purple. Or let's just do green out of these while we've got it. So if I tag those green, helps if edit all selected is on. So if we tag those green, then now out of this collection, I've got 6, if no one others, like so. So in this collection, I can look at, if we don't select any of them, we can look at all the selected, or we can look at none of them. So it depends how you want to do it. We could also sort by the color tag. So if I sort by color tag, then we're going to have the 6 at the top and then all the others. So it's just more of a question of sorting, I would say, Sergey, to see the difference. Oh, there's a good. Randy says, to add a border using Capture One and Photoshop, read this article on Laurent Bichon website, creating a PS droplet. Thanks, Randy. Hold that thought, who was asking that. Oh, Adam says, amazing, I will use this for client proofs. It's really a massive time saver, because if you imagine having to dig through, 1,000 shots that you've taken and the client's picked 50, it's a real pain to have to sift through all those shots. Oh, sorry, correction from Randy, Laurent Bichon. That's what you said, I think. Oh, Lawrence, not Laurent. Laurent Bichon, there we go. All right, I think that pretty much takes us up nicely to the hour. We didn't get to batch renaming, but of course, if you remember to have a good, robust import process, you should never have to do a batch rename anyway. Should you want to, it's just a simple right click and say batch rename. You'll get a warning saying it's going to change it on disk. And you can either do text and tokens, where you can use exactly the same principal as before, or you can do a find and replace. So if you ask Capture One to find a term like Sina, then it will find that term, and then you can replace it with whatever, if I spell his name wrong, to singer like so, and then it will show you before and after. So if you do need to do a quick tweak of a particular file name, if you've done a spelling wrong, find and replace is really handy. Text and tokens uses exactly the same principle as before. In terms of what's coming up in the future, let's just bring up Chrome for a second. Don't forget, if you go to our learning hub, learn.captureone.com, don't forget to filter by webinars. I will schedule new webinars for February, probably sometime next week. In addition to webinars, which is what you're watching now, which are generally 60 minutes long, what we also have, if you look on our YouTube channel, so if you go to Capture One Pro, easy to find on YouTube, scroll down a bit and find this part, Capture One Live Broadcasts. We are currently live, as you can see, but you'll also see a few more scheduled things coming up as well. They're shorter, they're 25 to 30 minutes, so a little bit more compact, and they're just out on YouTube and Facebook. So you can see on Tuesday, we're looking at the monogram console. If you don't know what that is this guy. It's not plugged in, but you get the idea. So this is along the lines of a hardware input to pull around the functionality using dials and buttons of Capture One. It's modular. I haven't broken it, but you can decide exactly how the layout should look so it fits to your desk. It's pretty cool. So we're going to have a look at that on Tuesday, and it integrates quite nicely with Capture One. Just on the Mac at the moment, I'm afraid. So that's what we're looking at Tuesday. Works really well with Speed Edit, actually. So you know. So don't forget to check out that. If you want to be notified of the live things coming up, when you look at any of these videos, you won't see it on mine because I'm logged in, but if you look at any of these videos, then you can also hit the subscribe button and the little dingly bell, and then you'll know half an hour before we go live that it's going to happen, and also at the point we go live as well. All right, thanks for joining me today, everybody. I hope that was useful. I know it wasn't editing, so it's a little bit more brain taxing, but hopefully there's a few things in there that will help you move through Capture One much faster. Enjoy your weekend when it gets there, and see you all next week. Take care. Bye now.